This is a practical demonstration of just how far the Chinese car industry has come in a relatively short amount of time. I mean, it's also the new Chery Tiggo 4 Pro, but you know, it can be two things at the same time. Now, Chery was actually one of the first Chinese brands to enter the Australian market way back in 2011. Remember then? Well, unfortunately, it was gone by 2015 after a few, let's say, issues with the cars. But it came back a few years ago in a barely recognisable form. Gone were the cheap and, to be blunt, pretty nasty cars the brand sold initially, and instead they are far more stylish and compelling propositions like this Tiggo 4 Pro. But should it be on your shortlist if you're in the market for a compact SUV? Let's find out. Let's start with the price, because that's where the Tiggo 4 Pro makes its strongest case. There are two models to choose from, the Urban and the Ultimate, the latter of which is what we're driving here. They start at $23,990 for the Urban and $26,990 for the Ultimate. Notably, both of those prices are drive away, which gives Chery a clear financial advantage on its key rivals, namely the Hyundai Venue, Mazda CX-3, Kia Stonic and Nissan Juke. You get plenty of gear for your money too, with the Urban equipped with 17-inch alloy wheels, dual zone climate control, dual 10.2-inch display screens, there's Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and a Hello Chery voice command system. The Ultimate adds extras like 18-inch alloy wheels, heated front seats, a 6-speaker sound system, and a 360-degree surround view camera, plus a power sunroof. Now, if you want more details on the specifications, make sure you read my in-depth written review at carsguide.com.au. Let's talk about design, because that is arguably the area that Chery has evolved the most in the past decade or so. That's because those early Cherys that came here back in 2011 were frankly just not very good. I mean, they really did look like, you know, a car designed by a group of people that weren't allowed to talk to each other. They were incredibly disjointed. The Tiggo 4 Pro, on the other hand, looks really smart. It's got a cohesive design. It connects to the Tiggo 7 and Tiggo 8 that are also in the range. And frankly, it looks unique. It looks like a Chery. It doesn't look like it's a derivative or it's been inspired by a different model. It's got a unique Chery look, and I think the company should be applauded for just how far they have come from a design perspective in such a short amount of time. It's the same inside, with the cabin looking very modern with its dual 10.2-inch screen displays that belies its sharp pricing, and with soft touch materials used in key spots, it has an almost premium finish. Inside, the Chery actually offers up pretty good space for what is ultimately a compact SUV, so it's not really designed to take a large family. But you know, the seats are good, they're comfortable, they're supportive in the right spots. Space is good up front. You've got good small item storage spread around the cabin. About the only real, notable item that it's missing out on is like a wireless charging pad for your smartphone, but you've got USB ports so you can plug it in. Rear space, like I said, this isn't a family car, but you could squeeze two adults in the back in relative comfort. I can just get behind my own driving position. My knees are up against the back of the seat, but a little bit of trade-off. It's ultimately, pretty reasonable for this size of SUV. The boot is a good size, measuring 380 litres on paper, and it has a nice wide floor with a space saver spare underneath. That puts it amongst the bigger compact SUVs in the luggage capacity department, so that's another positive for Chery. As for the practicality and the usability of the infotainment system, it's actually fairly good. It's got an app-based, looks like a smartphone-style menu screen, so it's fairly easy to navigate. It has got this Hello Chery function that, frankly, I find pretty hit and miss. For example, I just said its name and it didn't wake up then, so, but it's got wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, so realistically, I found myself just using that system that I'm more familiar with all the time. So, the actual usability of the technology, I think, is very good. So this I've got to highlight. This is the welcome theme. It's got to be the world's longest welcome theme. These are supposed to be just a few seconds of of sound to welcome you into the car, to make you feel, you know, a little bit of a surprise and delight feature, as the car industry calls it. Usually they're a few seconds long. Chery really pushed the boat out on this one. Their welcome theme lasts 15 seconds. And yes, I timed that with a stopwatch. It is, I mean, Peter Jackson would be proud of that. It is so long, you can actually get in, put your seatbelt on and turn on the car and it's still playing the welcome theme. Doing a little bit of maths, which I'll grant you is not my strong suit, but I worked out if you leave it on and you drive your Chery Tiggo for once per day, in 1 year, you will listen to over 3 hours of the welcome theme. Which, look, honestly, you can switch it off. There's a menu that, you know, you can just dial up the settings here and switch it off. But I got to give kudos to Chery for creating what I think is probably the longest welcome theme in the world. Under the bonnet, the Tiggo 4 Pro is motivated by the same powertrain in both the Urban and Ultimate models. It's a 1.5 litre 4-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine paired to a continuously variable transmission that drives the front wheels. It makes 108 kilowatts of power and 210 newton meters of torque, which is actually very competitive against its rivals, which adds another layer of appeal to this new Chery. As for its fuel efficiency, the above average engine performance comes at the expense of a below average fuel economy number of 7.3 litres per 100 Ks. While not the worst in the compact SUV segment, it's still relatively high, but based on our driving experience, it seems like a realistic claim at least. With a 51 litre fuel tank, the Tiggo 4 Pro has a driving range of just under 700 kilometers, which is pretty solid for such a small SUV. It's good value, it's got a nice design, it's a little thirsty, but it's got good power. So far, it's all sounding pretty good for the Tiggo 4 Pro, right? Well, this is where things go a little bit sideways because Chery still has a bit to learn when it comes to driving dynamics. It starts with the steering, which frankly is not great. It's very light, and that isn't bad per se. You know, having an SUV, particularly like an urban-friendly SUV with light steering, makes for, you know, easy parking and navigating around, you know, tight urban environments. The problem with the Chery is that it's both very light but unevenly weighted, and therefore it just feels, you know, like it lacks confidence as a driver. I don't mean it feels like, oh, you know, like a sports car where I don't feel connected to the front, like I can't, you know, accurately tip it into the apex. That's irrelevant for a car like this. Where it feels, you know, not so great is, you know, that sense that you just feel a little bit disconnected from the front end of the car. Certainly, compared to its competitors, the Chery is a step behind or 2 steps behind. And it's certainly not helped by the tyres, which are gitty, which is, they frankly feel pretty not very good. You know, they feel like they lack grip, they lack traction. You know, when you go through, you know, a roundabout, you feel like, you know, frankly, I feel a bit nervous. I don't mean to imply that the Chery is, you know, a dangerous car by any sense, but it just doesn't inspire confidence and comfort as a driver. And then that is compounded again by the brakes. It's a very long brake pedal. You know, usually, you know, these cars that we drive are very new. They tend to be, you know, quite new and fresh. And so more often than not, they'll have quite a firm brake pedal, quite a sharp initial bite as soon as you start pressing down on the pedal. With this one, you've really got to press in, and it really feels like it takes quite some time for the car to start to slow. And that, again, doesn't feel very confidence inspiring, and B, just feels a little bit behind its competitive set. And that's sort of where the Tiggo 4 Pro struggles against its rivals, is just in giving you that sense of confidence and enjoyment behind the wheel. Which is a shame because, like I say, the powertrain is good. I like the engine, its performance. You know, I like the ride even. It's quite soft, but it, you know, it soaks up the bumps relatively well. It's, you know, kind of what you want in a compact SUV like this. But Chery's engineers just need to do a bit more work fine-tuning the chassis to get on the same level as its key rivals. In terms of safety, ANCAP has not crash tested the Tiggo 4 Pro at the time of publication, but it does have a fairly comprehensive list of safety items, so on paper, it should tick most of the boxes when it comes to protecting its occupants, but there are some things you can't measure on paper, and modern active safety features are one of them. While it has all the right ADAS acronyms like AEB and LKA and all the other ones you can imagine, Chery needs to do some major recalibration in my opinion, because some of these systems just do not work as they're intended. Specifically, the adaptive cruise control with its lane keeping assistance. I mean, it's supposed to be a lane keeping assistance, but frankly, it becomes quite problematic at times. That's because when the cruise control system is activated, it engages the system to stay in the lane, even when you go through the menu and turn off all the individual lane keeping assist, lane departure warning, all those things. Turn all of those off. When you have adaptive cruise control on, this is what we have found, it still tries to keep you in the lane. The problem is, it tries to keep you in the lane by finding the lane marking. So it drifts to the side of the lane, finds the lane marking, and then snaps back. And so the steering is in a near constant state of winding up to get you to the side and then snapping back. And then it winds up and then snaps you back to the middle. And frankly, it's got to be one of the most frustrating, annoying systems of its kind I've ever driven. I had to stop using cruise control because it's just simply unnerving to have the car constantly, the steering wheel is tugging in your hand almost the entire time. It is winds up, snap, wind, snap. It's just bizarre, and I've never experienced anything quite like it. It really needs some work. And it's a shame because frankly, some of the other systems do seem well calibrated. The driver attention system, for example, is actually pretty good. It's not, it's a common problem with those systems that we've found is that they tend to be, hyperactive, oversensitive. They're constantly beeping at you to tell you to pay attention. This one, it only, chimes in and gives you a nice subtle warning when you are really taking your eyes off the road and not paying attention. But there's these other systems, like the adaptive cruise and the lane keeping, they need work, because what's the point of having a safety system if you turn it off? It basically defeats the purpose. And so I think that's one of those areas that Chery's going to need to work on to, again, close the gap to its rivals. As for its ownership credentials, the Tiggo 4 Pro is covered by Chery's impressive 7 years unlimited K warranty. The company also offers 7 years cap-price servicing and roadside assistance, which should help give buyers peace of mind when it comes to trying what is still a relatively new brand in the Australian market. It's difficult to know exactly how to sum up the Tiggo 4 Pro. On the one hand, there's some pretty significant issues in the way it drives and some of the safety system calibration. But on the other hand, it's a pretty stylish, very well packaged, and really good value compact SUV. So ultimately, I think, if you're in the market for a vehicle like this, it needs to be on your shortlist. You should drive it and see how, you ultimately feel about these shortcomings. But what there is no doubt of is exactly how much this demonstrates the rapid evolution and progress made by both Chery specifically and the Chinese car industry in general in the last decade or so. If Chery can, work on these issues and, improve the driving experience in the same way it's improved its presentation and quality from those first models I drove, years ago, then I've got no doubt Chery will become a major player in the Australian car industry in the not too distant future. Now, if you want to know more about the Chery Tiggo 4 Pro or any Chery model, make sure you check out our in-depth written reviews at carsguide.com.au.